Hello and welcome to A Woman's Heart, where we pursue our passion. I'm Lisa Granger. Where did women get the idea that they should shrink back once they get to midlife? In a world that favors youth and all things new and shiny, we can dismiss the advantages of having more life experiences. My conversation with Dawn Barton will challenge the myth that it's all downhill once you hit midlife. She reminds us all in her book, Midlife Battle Cry, that we are the best we have ever been, with so much to offer the world. Be sure to check out my website, lisagranger.com, for the show notes, how to connect with Dawn, and the complete summer reading list. So grab your favorite beverage and join us for this talk between friends. Hello and welcome to A Woman's Heart. I have been looking forward to this. We have Dawn Barton on the show today. Thank you so much for joining me today, Dawn.
Oh, I'm so excited, Lisa. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. I am very fortunate. We have a mutual friend who is an amazing woman, and that is how we were able to connect. But I really appreciate your taking the time, because I know you're not doing a whole lot of that right now.
I'm not. I'm kind of in my own little hole right now. I'm in a season of being in a hole.
Oh, no. Well, you still have your books out there, which we're going to get to. But first of all, I have the pleasure of knowing a little bit about you, but I'm looking forward to getting to know you a little bit better. And I would love for you to tell us about yourself and something fun that isn't normally in your bio.
Sure. Like you said, I'm an author. I am a speaker. I love telling this, I am a former top sales director for Mary Kay Cosmetics.
Yes.
And had a dream one day when God called me to write a book, and I left everything. I was number 7 in the nation, and I left everything. They thought I lost my mind, and I kind of did. But I was following a God calling, But in this season, like I was just saying, I'm a little bit of a hole, because I have stepped into this season of caretaking. And for those of you who are in the caretaking season, everything just pivots on a dime, right?
Yeah.
So we're fortunate that we live kind of in the country. My husband and I and our daughter, Ella. We have a 17-year-old daughter, but we also have a 34-year-old daughter that's married with 5 kids. We have 5 grandkids.
Wow.
But my mother-in-law lives in the house. My parents live next door. We have horses, we have cats, we have dogs, and a partridge and a pear tree. So I think a lot of people don't know that I'm out mucking stalls is the same person that is promoting books and doing those fun things.
Yes. Yeah. So you're a very well-versed and diverse woman.
You got it.
There you go. Yeah. Well, and what a blessing that you're able to do that and still be able to smile with everything that is going on. And I love how in your bio it said you're a joyologist. So how did you come up with this name? Tell me about this joyologist term.
I didn't come up with it. One of my friends did, and it sort of stuck. And I sort of forget it's in there sometimes. Because I don't know that I'm quite as joyful as I tease. I am as joyful as a woman that I was. But many years ago, when I was writing the first book, and before it had come out, I was in this sort of limbo season. And I said to my friend Caroline, I said, I don't even know what to tell people I do, because I don't have a book out. I don't want to say I'm an author. I just want to stand on mountaintops and tell people about Jesus and joy. And she looked at me and she goes, yeah, you're a joyologist. And I was like, that's just about the most clever thing I've ever heard. So I just started putting it on everything.
Yeah, no, that is fun. And I love how your friend came up with that. And yeah, I can imagine that being kind of in that limbo area. And that was one of the things that I had thought about. You were number 7 in the country. By all outward appearances, you had everything. And you mentioned a lot of lies in the book, which we'll get some more to. But that whole everyone looking at you one way, but you feeling another. What are some of those lies that we frequently will tell ourselves or about other people when we're looking at other people and what we think is successful, but have no idea what's really going on behind closed doors?
Well, I would say that one of the greatest things about getting older is that we get this wisdom. We get very saggy boobs, but we get this incredible amount of wisdom, right?
Yes.
And we have come to figure out that every single person has stuff, whether she's showing it externally or not. I promise you 100% we all have stuff. So after I left Mary Kay and I wrote the first book, those years in between first and second book is when I really struggled, because that first book was a very clear God calling. It was a dream. God said, you're going to, I sound crazy when I tell this story, by the way. I know I sound crazy, but it is what happened. God woke me up, said, you're going to write a book, write this down, write this down. The next day I Googled, how do you write a book? And everything fell into place, from top literary agent to being published by HarperCollins, Thomas Nelson. I mean, one of the top 3 publishers in the world. It's just a story that never, ever happens.
Yeah.
And then I felt like God went on just quiet mode. And I really struggled with that. And all I kept hearing him say was that, just rest in me. And I would argue back and go, I don't know why you can tell me to rest. If you know who I am, you created me, you know that I'm not patient. That just seems like a really counterintuitive request of me. So that is when I struggled the most, really unclear on some purpose and not getting that black and white God path to the second book like I did the first. Was it still a great journey? Absolutely. Did it still come to fruition in a beautiful way that honored him? Absolutely. But it was just very different. So I will say that it took me about a year and a half, 2 years to finally understand that he was telling me to rest for the next thing that was coming. Like, I just need you to be still because I have so much more for you. That's very hard to see when you're in that season.
Yeah, it really is. And sometimes, as much as we tell ourselves that, oh, I'm sure he's got something worked out, it's like, but you're going to show me this tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I'm going to need a color-coded spreadsheet for this. And he never, ever delivers one.
Yeah, no, he does not. And I
Ever.
have gotten frustrated that I was like, Lord, you can part the seas. Can you not just send me a little email? Just something, please.
Yeah. And my prayers ask for, God, if you're going to show me something, don't give it to me in a whisper. I need like a flashing Vegas sign, because I question and question. I think we all do question the whispers, right?
Yeah, I think we do. But one of the things that I have had brought to my mind whenever I kind of get into a pity party or I start whining with God about how I want this or how I want that and why can't you send a miracle? He brings me back to Exodus and he said, but the Israelites had that and look how they behaved. And I'm like, okay, ouch. So maybe a big pillar of fire wouldn't be the best thing for me.
Right.
I was like, they had pillars of smoke and fire, and they still built golden calves and murmured and grumbled and complained. So exactly. Oh, my. Well, kind of coming back to the joy, because you are known and your smile is just lights up everything, and with your joyologist. But your joy hasn't always, it's somewhat been hard won. You've had a lot of things, very tough, traumatic things that have happened to you, and yet you mentioned they build a foundation for joy. Tell us how that works out.
Sure. The first book was based off of kind of telling the stories of that. In my life, I've lost a child. I have been raped. I've survived stage 3 triple negative breast cancer. My mother had a ruptured brain aneurysm. My sister passed away from cancer. My husband battled alcoholism and so many other things. But I think what was unique is that in everything, I don't know if I worked hard or I'm more wired that way or whatever the reason may be. I was able to find so much joy through those things. Now, I don't mean that when we lost our daughter, there was joy in it, because of course it's unbelievable heartache. But there was joy in the people he put in our space to help us through that season. There was joy in when I had cancer in the people he brought into my life, and the nurses and the little moments, those little magnificent holy moments. I think because I say that I tell people, I think I've experienced more joy than most people have because I've experienced more pain than most people have. I think it is in the valleys that we know him at a very different level, right? Just this magnificent relationship that is in a valley that we don't have on mountaintops. So the more valley stuff you have, the more intensity of that relationship. It's hard for it to talk to someone, God bless them, who has never, ever been through anything, because it really is in a valley that we we know him so much deeper. So I think that I've had a life that's allowed me to know him at much deeper levels. And because of that, find a lot more joy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love how you mentioned it wasn't necessarily the situation that was joyful, but it was all the other things around it. And so you were able to maybe be, struggle and be with grief, but also find the joy in the middle of those. And I've over and over in my life, I have been convinced that there's a lot of power in that and being able to hold both.
Yeah. And I don't think we necessarily see the joy in the moment, right?
Yes.
It's sometimes in a hindsight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And then being able to look at the other things. And you mentioned your first book, the Laughing Through the Ugly Cry, was kind of that story of going through, and it was a total God thing. What was the thing that really, made your heart sing about releasing that book? What was it about, letting that book out into the world that you were the most excited about?
Oh, gosh. I was like, well, it wasn't a very joyful journey. And I just mean because it was so hard, and not necessarily from the writing, the putting my stories to paper and being able to talk about things like the loss of our daughter in such an in-depth way that the reader feels it more. Mm-hmm. I had to feel it more, right? I mean, you have to go back there. Mm-hmm. So somebody once said, was it so therapeutic writing it? I was like, no, it was awful. It was absolutely awful. It was so hard. And then, the whole process, I'm probably bursting the bubble of some poor woman out there who has this vision of writing a book. I'm just going to tell you, it was not an easy journey, but he really did. I think it was truly that I wanted a color-coded spreadsheet. I wanted to know what was behind door, 24, 25, and 26 when I was really at door number 8. And he said, let's just focus on door number 9. And just constantly, let's focus on door number 9. So because of how I'm wired and that achievement sort of brain of mine, wanting to know how do we get the big things done, it was having to stay in the next step that was probably really hard. So that was a great lesson learned from it. And it was probably one of the hardest things I've done because it took me so out of my comfort zone and so out of my ability to control things. Because I couldn't control what a reader thought. I couldn't control what if a publisher was picking it up. I couldn't control, all those things. Yeah. So there's a lot of lessons learned in that one.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing is there was a lot of surrendering.
Oh, surrender.
We don't like
it as hard for everyone else as it is for me. I'm like, really? I'm just going to hold up this side, really, just right here. I'll just hold up this. Yeah,
yes. It is. There's a freedom in it, but it is not easy at all to surrender because we want to control everything. Oh my gosh! Now I haven't read the first one, but I did read Midlife Battle Cry, and I loved it. I loved your style of writing, and it was like we were sitting down having a cup of tea or coffee, and I'd have to have lemonade because I don't like sweet tea. I know I'm a Southerner, and I don't
like tea.
Okay.
I don't like tea at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then we could just sit down and have something else to drink on the front porch. But that is how you wrote it. And the titles were so fun in your chapter. And I so enjoyed that and really felt that cry, that kind of, really the second half is awesome. And the very general overall of what I got from it. What were you hoping that your readers would get from that book?
Exactly what you described. So it's really nice that you said that. I was hoping that it would feel like time spent with a best girlfriend sitting there talking to you. And sometimes she was hugging you and sometimes her foot was on your butt, pushing you off a ledge, like, come on. Just because I feel like so many of us have pulled back in life and, midlife and beyond. And my battle cry, if you will, was that we're the best we've ever been. It's not the time to step back. It's time to step 2 steps forward.
Yeah. Now, was there a particular chapter that maybe was extra special to you that you enjoyed writing?
Well, what's funny about writing a book is that what you think is going to be one chapter sort of evolves and it morphs into so many different things. And I think what I was most amused by was the letter to myself. There's a chapter that's sort of a letter to myself, basically telling me to just run around naked because it's the only time in my life that everything's going to stay in place. I cracked myself up so much on that. I don't think everyone else was as cracked up, but I was highly entertained by it.
I do remember that chapter. I was like, no, I don't think I would do that. I still don't think I would do that part, but
in hindsight,
I understood the sentiment.
Yeah, but I think I wish I had lived a little more just wildly, fully, embracing all that I was in that season of life,
Yeah. And I can definitely see that in looking back, and you go, you try to make the best of things while you're in the middle of it. And then you look back and you go, no, I really didn't take advantage of it as much as I should have. But I think there's so much in looking back for all of us that we do that.
For sure. It's the only season in life of my 54 years where I could have worn a tube top, and I didn't realize that. So that tube top will not work for me now. I'm just going to throw that at all. And it didn't work for me at 30 or 40 or any other time.
No, I think a tube top would have worked for me when I was about 10. That's about it. No. Well, and was there a chapter that you wrote that you were like, okay, I know I need to write it, but gosh, this is just maybe a little challenging or tough for you to write?
I did a chapter on being a sandwich generation, which is that I'm raising a child while taking care of parents. And I have so much more to say on the caretaking thing. And I really pulled back. I think I'll write actually a book on that in a few years after my parents are gone. But so it was actually a chapter that was more pulled back in, which was the sandwich generation, in talking about my parents, because I had just overflowing with emotion on that subject. And I loved them all, obviously.
I know that is a tough question.
And I love the chapter on finances, and I wish I could scream from rooftops about women and money and, all the different things. So
we'll touch on that a little bit, because you did. That was one of those chapters that you got to, and I was like, well, this is a very good chapter. I didn't expect it. I expected, just more the encouragement and the mindset and everything else. But the finance chapter was very practical. I mean, you had some definite ideas on that, and I would love for you to touch on that a little bit more.
Well, it was birthed out of two situations that happened within probably 4 weeks of each other that I just thought, why are we not talking about this? And the first was that my sister went through a divorce from a very wealthy man and never, ever, ever looked at anything financial. He just always said the accountant has it, the accountant has it. And at the end, they went through a divorce, and at the end of it, her name was not on anything except her car. And it really hurt her tremendously in going through that divorce. Yeah. And the second was that one of my very best friends, and I want to say I love her husband. She said, we were having this, our husbands have the same job. They're both airline pilots. And we were having this conversation, and I said something about our retirement, or where you guys, because we know each other's incomes. I'm very open about that. And she goes, I don't know. I've never seen it. And I was like, what do you mean you've never seen it? She said, I don't have the passwords to any of that stuff. And I was like, how do you not know your retirement? And she just, and the more we talked, I could see on her face, she was a little bit like, why don't I have the passwords to this? And it turned out she went to her husband, and he said, you've never asked. And so, and it wasn't that he was a slime ball of a guy hiding stuff. It was that she had never been proactive about, taking but a lot of times, I mean, it's sad, but we lose husbands. We find ourselves, when we've been stay-at-home moms, in positions where we are now the, financial provider for our family, but we didn't have any financial knowledge of how things worked. When Craig and I bought a house, I didn't understand anything about mortgage stuff. This is many years ago. And I made him sit down and go, I am frustrated because I don't understand this. So explain it. But I'm also frustrated that we women, we don't talk about money the way men do.
This is true.
When we do not. And I've started doing investment properties like Airbnb stuff, and trying to make money in different kinds of entrepreneurial ways. and investing in stuff. And my girlfriends are not talking about this. And so whenever I find the poor 3 people that do, I'm just like, really? What are you investing? What are you guys doing? How are you doing it? How's it making money? I'm so hungry for it because I think we're amazing as women. Why have we? Well, I actually do know why we have pulled back. I'm 54. My mother's generation could not get a loan without a man's signature. So we are only one generation removed, me, from a man truly being in full control of finances. And so it has just been that way for so many years. So that's more than you probably ever wanted to know, but there you go.
No, I asked the follow-up question because I think you're right. There are so many things that's not something that we talk about. And so it is very easy to then get blindsided by it when you find yourself in a position that all of a sudden you are expected to know about it and you've never learned. It's always been taken care of, or somebody else has done it, or it's been so simplistic. And so then you find yourself later on and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I've never learned how. And it doesn't necessarily mean we have to become financial wizards. I'm not going to be a financial wizard. That's not where my gifting is. But I do need to make sure I have steps that should something, God forbid, happen to my husband, that I'm not like just stranded with no way to know which end is up. There'll be plenty of other things that I'm in that situation with. But hopefully not completely on the financial end.
Right. I will say, in answer to your question, though, that probably the most moving chapters would be the things on community and friendships, which is actually what the next book is. The next book is on friendship. So that was more of I'm really passionate about female friendships and community and all of those things right now. And I was even when I wrote that. So, yeah.
And that came through. That came through. I loved this story. I don't think we're giving too much away, where you met one woman who said, yeah, I don't do friends with females. And you pretty much went challenge accepted.
That's Bridget. We're dear friends, but I don't do. And you see that because of, I think we have a history of the cattiness in female relationships and workplaces and things like that. But this season, this midlife season, I think there is a deep craving for it that is very different. And so I'm in this season of, I've pulled off from doing the speaking circuit stuff because of the situation with my parents. And I kind of need to be available on a dime. But it also made me a little bit bored, not feeling like I'm just kind of, it's a horrible thing, but you feel like you're waiting for something bad to happen with your parents, which is this horrible feeling.
Yeah, you need to be available and flexible, but you don't want to just sit on the porch twiddling your thumbs.
Exactly. So I started getting really proactive and looking at, I found myself getting depressed because I was really just sitting around waiting for someone to be sick again. And which, forgive me, it sounds terrible, but it had been our reality just sort of nonstop for about a year.
Yeah. And
we're in this great season right now. So then I started, I have a restaurant that I have a standing reservation every Friday, and now I do Thursdays.
Okay.
And then I made a list of not just people to go to lunch, but in different categories. So I have my first category is my heart category, which are women that just fill my cup. My next category, let's see, I have business on there, people who I really want to learn from.
Okay.
Then I have the category of, there's people you meet that you're just like, I really want to know her more. I just don't know her at all, but I want to know her.
Yes.
I have that as a category. I have people on there that I want to thank. And so I take them to lunch just to say, I love you and thank you for all you do. Like at our hospital, I'm involved in our hospital a little. So I had that. So I've just, it makes me get out of the house and get dressed, which is a huge thing I can stay in some sweats. Let me just tell you, all day, every day. I can skip some showers. Yeah. And then I started, I wanted to play Mahjong, and I knew that was something that I could get women together, learn this game. It's not I didn't want to go to, I'm not a big drinker. I'm not passing judgment. I'm swollen. I don't feel good the next day, and it just isn't me. So, and Mahjong isn't really one you can't really play well and be, trashed. You just can't do it. And so I did that. I started going to Pilates. I go almost every day now. So doing things that got me out, meeting women, being in the space of women. And I just love it. I love it. I love it. But I've had to be really proactive and get out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think those are I love your categories of different people. It's like, you're just like, oh, okay. Well, yeah. And there are, and I found out a while ago, it was like, I need girlfriends. I need some regular girlfriends that I can get together with. And if I don't have at least one coffee date of some sort, like every week or once a week or every other week or something, I start getting kind of cranky.
Yeah, we need each other. We really do.
Yes.
In the fall, I co-lead a life group through our church. And so I do get a piece of that. But in the summer, I was just noticing, I think we really have to pay attention to, at this point in our lives, we know who we are. We can tell when we're getting a little bit in a slump. I can tell when I'm wanting to stay in bed a little bit longer, not really wanting to go. Yeah, I can tell these are, so I start getting really proactive about doing things that are positive triggers for me. I know what negative triggers are in my life, and I just try to offset that with positive triggers in my life.
Yeah, I love that. And I think sometimes, too, then we get maybe apathetic or something, or we're intimidated to try to make friendships, because a lot of times, too, I would think at our age, because I'm the same age, that you kind of have your friends that you've had for a really long time, but I keep making friends with people that move away. And then I'm like, everybody else around me seems to already have their people, and it is intimidating to try to break in to another circle at times.
Well, a lot of the people that follow me on social media, we're kind of having a conversation. They were saying they were having trouble. I was like, you guys, just go to church and go to a women's event. And so I did that. I went to a church that I didn't really know very well, and I went to their big women's event. And I talked to 7 women. I mean, I was so outside it. I'm a fairly confident and I would say bold, but I don't have a problem introducing myself and doing those kind of things. And I could not get anyone to connect with me at all. And I went, I told, So I came back and I thought, if you can't even find someone at a church, for the love of Pete, you're like, what are we doing wrong? So it started this great, wonderful conversation. Number one, that as it turns out, I just wasn't maybe supposed to be connected in that church. And because it wasn't the church I was going to, I was kind of doing an experiment. So, but once I did get really proactive on, okay, I need to be doing something physical. And when I go to Pilates, I have to say hello. It's not that everybody is willing to say hi to me. I'm saying hi. So I think we're all intimidated and we're all nervous, but there's got to be somebody that smiles and says hi, because we all don't want to talk.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. I agree with that. And I think there's so many of us that do want to make other connections and that, but we're either intimidated or we try and somebody else they're nervous. It's everybody's nervous, so nobody does anything.
And then we don't do a darn tootin' thing. And what's so funny is when you get to around a group of women, you can feel who you're like drawn to, attracted to, who you're meant to be a friend with. It's just one of those great things God does. It's just that same with a man and a woman, the ones who you can't explain why you're necessarily originally attracted to one another, but you just are. And same thing with women. You just are. I went to a recent women's event where I didn't know the people sitting on each side of me. We were at a table, and the woman I talked to the most was not the woman I felt most connected to. It was actually another woman that was around the table, but there was just something between that other woman and I that I felt like she just got me and I got her. And it was so strange.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I've noticed too that there's sometimes where I think, oh, okay, that's the one I'm going to, oh, that I seem to be connected to her. And they seem nice, but I don't seem very connected. But then when I actually start talking to them, it's like, oh my gosh, wow. And you end up there've been several times where I really kind of feel like God's been going, yeah, you need to actually get to know somebody before you start making some judgments and, or just making decisions or whatever. And it's not so much that I was judging them. I was like, oh, okay, they seem nice. I just don't really, I don't know. And then you start talking, or a couple of other things happen, and you're like, oh, no, I do. I really like that person. And there's something about them that's really amazing that you want to be around them again.
Totally agree.
Well, that's your next one. And I don't want to forget any more about the Midlife Battle Cry, because that's the one that I read. And fortunately I did. I got key takeaway was that, yeah, we are in the best half of our life, and to just go for it. Is there anything else before we kind of leave that and start doing that you really want to make sure women get as the message from that book?
I don't know that it's necessarily society or do we put that on ourselves or what the reasoning is, but the reality is we truly, truly are, and I don't mean it flippantly, we are the best we have ever been. We have survived 100% of everything we've been through. And we have so much wisdom and so many stories and so much love and so much loss and so much joy and so much pain that our job, I believe that we are meant to live our life with one hand forward with the woman who's gone before us and one hand backward where we're pulling the woman up who's behind us. And that's at every season of our life. But I think it's the strongest in midlife.
I would agree with that as far as learning from the ones that are ahead and then mentoring those that are maybe a couple of steps behind in their journey. I would absolutely agree with that. Now, one of the things that you're also passionate that I wanted to let you talk about is your retreats. And you may not be doing a whole lot of them right now with the caregiving season and such, but I want to allow you to talk a little bit about the retreats that you do, because I know that you're very passionate about those.
That's my greatest love. And that is not something I pulled back on. So we do 4 a year. And that is, I do 2 a spring and a fall retreat. I do a retreat for alumni, so only women who have come before. And then I do a retreat for the mothers of special needs children. It's a free retreat supported by the other retreats for moms of special needs kids, but only from my local community. And I don't pick the people, that it's provided by churches and hospitals in town. So I get the only reason I said that is I get a lot of messages whenever I tell people about it. So,
yeah.
Which I love. So I love them. I came from this world where I've always been in sales and marketing. And because of that, I always had opportunities to do a lot of conferences and a lot of going to things. And then you put it that Mary Kay community is so community driven.
Yes,
just that sisterhood is tight. And then to step into the regular world where there really isn't any of that. And I wanted to have a weekend for women that was a life-changing weekend from a soul deep, godly perspective. But mostly what I know that they don't know is that when you put women together like that, because the max I'll allow is 15, and you go so deep and it's so beautifully deep, I should say, in such a short amount of time, the bonds that form between them are so strong. Yeah. It's so beautiful to watch. And so to see them walk away with so many deep, new, beautiful friendships, it's just like, I know it's going to happen and I love it. And I'm like, oh, just wait to the end. And to see, I'll never forget a woman coming one time. Her son had committed suicide 6 months before. And she sat, we're sitting in a circle, and she sat with her arms crossed. And she said, I don't know why I'm here. I don't think I'll ever be happy again. And I would love to just smile one more time. And there was nothing joyful on her face. She was angry. She was upset. And I have the most amazing picture of her by the second day with her arms thrown in the air, with her head thrown back laughing. And now she's such good friends with those other women. It's the most beautiful thing that God has allowed me to do these retreats, to sit on the sidelines and watch him work.
Yeah, and I remember reading that just what they looked like. You would take a picture at the beginning and take a picture of them at the end, and they might have been smiling, but there was something, even just in the picture, the transformation was amazing.
I know. It's been the hardest thing to describe from a marketing perspective because we are so, and again, I know this makes us sound a little crazy, but we're so Holy Spirit led. So when the women come the first day after they leave, the teachers, the mentors that I have, we can feel what the overlying issues are and the heaviness and what it is. And it changes each time. So we kind of know what to teach and speak to from that. But we really don't know until the Friday night. And I know that sounds crazy, but just God never fails. And he always brings together several women with the same stuff.
Wow.
It's so crazy. It's
that is.
I love it.
That is
it's
crazy. It's crazy to see how he works with that. That is so amazing. Well, kind of wrapping up, one of the things that I love to ask is, what would you say to encourage someone to pursue the passion that God has placed in their heart?
Oh, gosh, a million things. And they'd probably be so annoyed at me because I wouldn't shut up. And I'd just be like, don't stop. Because, first of all, and it's said, you hear it all the time, you do not need to be qualified for the thing that he calls you to. So that my first thing, I was not somebody who journaled. I never wrote. I never anything. I didn't even write lists, much less anything else when he called me to write that first book. So he equipped me to do that first book. It was not because of the experiences in the writing world that I had. And then do not stop from pursuing your passions and the things he's calling you to because you don't understand the full picture. You just need one step. That's why that next day I just Googled, how do you write a book? I knew that he called me to it. I didn't know how to do it, but I knew how to do one step. You just need to always know how to do one step towards that thing. And that's all you need. And he'll get the rest. He's got it.
Yeah, he'll just keep leading you one more step of the way. Yes.
He's really cool like that.
He is pretty cool about that. That is amazing. Well, Dawn, how can people follow you, connect with you, get your books, that sort of thing?
You can go to dawnbarton.com. I am most active on Instagram at Dawn R. Barton. Dawn R. Barton. And it's the same for Facebook, Dawn R. Barton, Dawn Barton Joyologist. And but Instagram, I am the person answering the messages. I'm really active on that particular platform.
Okay. And they can get your books on your website or Amazon?
They can get the books on Amazon, anywhere books are sold. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Well, Dawn, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. I truly appreciate it.
Oh, this has been so fun. It's good to do a podcast again.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for joining me today on A Woman's Heart. I'm Lisa Granger. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Dawn Barton and you are ready to raise your own battle cry to pursue your passion. I love how Dawn reminded us that we are the best we have ever been. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to the podcast and make sure you follow or subscribe on your favorite platform so you don't miss any episodes. Head over to my website for the complete summer reading list and the show notes with information about the show and how to connect with our guests. Until next time, have a blessed day.